No chimes, no song, no Santa.
All is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child. Christmas snow is falling, carols fill the air, but it won't be Christmas till Santa Claus is here. Christmas chimes are calling, Santa, Santa, every heart recalling, Santa, Santa. Come on, oh Kris Kringle, down the Milky Way. Christmas chimes are calling, Santa, we need you today. If you don't believe
For the past 75 years, the Santa train has been in operation.
Think about a Christmas with no Christmas cheer.
And this year, 2 special locomotives were chosen to pull this train.
We love his laughter.
Well, let's get on with it and chase the 75th Santa train.
Christmas chimes are calling, Santa, Santa, every heart recalling, Santa, Santa. Come on, oh Kris Kringle, down the Milky Way. Christmas chimes are calling, Santa, we need you today.
Today's date is November 18th, 2017. On this day, we are headed to see the 75th Santa train as it makes its way from Shelby Yard in the community of Shelbania, Kentucky to Kingsport, Tennessee. The special was started by the Clinchfield Railroad back in 1943. Back then, it was known as the Santa Claus Special. Ever since then, it was passed on by the old Clinchfield to the Seaboard system, then on to CSX. On the 50th anniversary, CSX decided to bring up Union Pacific 3985 and dress it up as Clinchfield 676. For that Santa train, it went down in history. 25 years later, on the 75th anniversary, this one will also go down in history as Clinchfield 800 and 3632 lead the 75th Santa train down home rails. For this train chase, it was just my dad and I. We got up at 5:00 in the morning to get ready for the chase. By 5:30, we left our hotel in Pikeville, Kentucky, and left to chase the Santa train. Our first stop was at a railroad crossing on Winston Branch. Located at the crossing is an old C&O target signal, along with a good source of light. Soon we heard, in the distance, an old horn coming towards us on the line. let's talk about the locomotives that are at the head of this train. Clinchfield 800 is a EMD F3A built in 1948. After the Clinchfield, 800 then went to the Seaboard system and was renumbered to 116. It kept its number even into CSX days. Later in its life, it was then sold to the South Branch Valley Railroad to operate on their well-known Potomac Eagle Scenic Railway as C&O 8016. It stayed there till it was moved to the North Carolina Transportation Museum in Spencer, North Carolina for streamliners at Spencer. After arriving there, it stayed at the North Carolina Transportation Museum till it was then moved to the Huntington Locomotive Shops in Huntington, West Virginia to get repainted as Clinchfield 800. Ironically, from what I could figure out, 800 never wore this scheme, on the Clinchfield at least. Ironically, it wore the black scheme that 3632 is wearing now. Speaking of 3632, it is an EMD SD45 built in 1971. Until now, 3632 was never a Clinchfield locomotive. When it began its life, it was first working for the Seaboard Coastline Railroad as 2024. As far as I could research, 2024 kept its SCL paint scheme into the Seaboard system days. Then, when CSX came in, they decided to renumber 2024 into 8924. After CSX, 2024 then went to work for Montana Rail Link, then I&M Rail Link. After the rail links, 2024 then went to the Northern Illinois and Wisconsin Railroad. Its final owner was Vintage Locomotive Inc. After that, it was then sold to the Southern Appalachia Railway Museum, which they then repainted 2024 back into its Seaboard Coastline colors and gave back its original number. Then, a month before the 75th Santa train came, 2024 was then patched into Clinchfield 3632 due to the fact that, well, the Seaboard Coastline scheme it was wearing looked very similar to the Clinchfield scheme before the takeover. We'll get back to the other two locomotives in a little bit, but for now, let's get back to the Santa train. Our next stop we see the train at is at Pond Creek Road crossing in the small town of Griffith, Kentucky. Ironically, my dad and I are the only people at this crossing to see the train. Unfortunately, this will be the only time me and my dad had a spot all to ourselves, due to the fact that lots and lots of people were here to see this train as well. After seeing the train in Griffith, we then moved to Elkhorn City, Kentucky, where we see the train at two well-known spots. The first place we got to was the Russell Fork Bridge, a 250-foot-long bridge crossing over its namesake river. When we got here, there was a lot of people here, with a literal wall of people stretching from the road to just before the Double Quick building. But when I went behind the Double Quick building, there was hardly anyone there, so I got set up and got this amazing shot. It didn't take very long before more rail fans found the spot and joined in. After Dad parked the car in downtown, literally, the downtown area is just across the bridge, he then proceeded to join me and see the train cross the bridge. this year's Santa train, CSX is using their business passenger cars, which include CSX 994363 Kentucky, 994008 Mississippi, 994307 Waycross, 994300 North Carolina, 994010 New York, 994525 Tennessee, 994500 Ohio, 994362 Louisiana, 994012 Michigan, 994350 Illinois, and 994310 West Virginia. All the passenger cars, including the locomotives 9992 and 9999, are all brought up from CSX's headquarters in Jacksonville, Florida. After the train crossed the bridge, my dad and I went to the second well-known spot in Elkhorn City, Pool Point Bridge. The bridge crosses over the Russell Fork River at a famous part of the river called Pool Point. The reason why this part of the river is called Pool Point is because this part of the river is much deeper than any part of the Russell Fork. Also, over the years, people have been known to jump from the bridge and into this part of the river to take a swim. And yes, don't worry, they'd survive, due to the fact that the river right here is way deeper than any other part of the river. To get to this well-known spot, there is a pull-off on Route 80 just south of Elkhorn City. But when we got to this pull-off point, it was full of cars from rail fans, possibly at the bridge. So, my dad dropped me off here so he could find a nearby parking spot and I could get to the bridge before the train did. After being dropped off, I then proceeded down a steep, narrow path, twisting and turning towards the tunnel mouth. Once at the bridge, I began to cross it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty scary, at least for me. But I said to myself as I was crossing it, look at the track. But just before I was almost across,
turn down my ISO a little bit.
yes, the Andy Griffith theme song began to play. This normally means my dad is calling me on my phone because I have it set up as his ringtone. But I couldn't pick it up since I was almost across the bridge. When the song ended, I made it across, and when I turned around, I saw my dad was starting to cross the bridge himself. As soon as my dad got across, I got set up for the shot. Soon again, we heard the horn of our Clinchfield Santa train and got ready to take that shot. While we make our way back to our car and our next stop, let's talk about the other two locomotives that are on the train. CSX 9992 and 9999 are both EMD F40PH-2s. 9992 was built in 1981 as Amtrak 390, and 9999 was built in 1978 as Amtrak 288. 9992 stayed with Amtrak till the middle of the 1990s when it was sold off to CSX for their executive train. Before 9999 came to CSX, it was first sold to the Ohio Central Railroad sometime in 2004. Then sometime in 2006, CSX acquired 9999. CSX also owns two more F40PH-2 locomotives, 9998 and 9993. But since they're not here, we won't be talking about them here. We soon arrived in the small town of Hasey, Virginia. Again, there was little to no parking space at the area where I wanted to see the train, so again, I was dropped off at the south portal entrance of the Russell Tunnel. I was on Big Ridge Road, Route 63, just above the tunnel mouth. There were lots of people down below waiting to see Santa Claus. There was also a line of rail fans waiting to see 800 come out of the tunnel down below. The old railway line that goes to the left of the screen is the old Hasey Railway. The Hasey Railroad was controlled by the Seaboard Coast Line and the Louisville and Nashville Railroads. Then, on June 1st, 1983, the SCL merged to Hasey, and to this day, it's still owned by CSX. The Hasey was best known for its very unusual motive power, Hasey Railroad No. 1. Hasey Railroad No. 1 is a EMD F7B unit that was previously working on the Clinchfield Railroad. When it got to the Hasey Railroad in 1972, they added radio controls and a makeshift cab. Today, Hasey No. 1 is owned by Vintage Locomotive Inc. and is being stored at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. I have to say, that is a very interesting locomotive to be using for a short-line railroad. Today, the Hasey Railroad is now abandoned due to the closure of the Dickinson-Russell Coal Company in 2007. With the signal showing green and a horn in the distance, we got set up for the shot. As the passenger cars continued to roll by, the crowd of people were getting more excited. Then, the West Virginia rail car came rolling out of the tunnel to reveal two famous figures, Santa Claus and Ricky Skaggs. Every year, the Santa train always gets some sort of famous figure to ride along with Santa Claus, and for this year, they got Ricky Skaggs.
Hi, stranger.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
As soon as the train came to a stop, I rejoined my dad back in the car and we left town, but we didn't get very far though. Just east of Hasty is an old coal transloading facility where they used to transload coal from trucks to trains. When we got there, we noticed that many of the rail fans were on the other side of the McClure River. We then asked someone on the same side as us how did they get across the river. He told us that there was some sort of tunnel that crossed over the river. We soon figured out that the guy was talking about the conveyor belt bridge that crossed the river. We then went into the conveyor belt bridge and used it to get across. When we were almost across, we then heard the horn of our train and made a mad dash to get to the other side. We ran down the steps and got down there to get set up for the shot. As soon as we got back to our car, we then proceeded to pace our train down Route 83. Pacing the train, we then proceeded to try to catch a train at its next stop in Clinchfield, Virginia. I was trying to get to the crossing, but I couldn't make it in time, so I caught the train on the other side of the river. I was located at the intersection of Route 83 and Route 63 Big Ridge Road. And yes, this is the same Big Ridge Road that goes all the way back to Hasty, Virginia. After seeing the train pull in, we then proceeded down 83 till we reached Benner Street. We then got ourselves parked east of the railroad bridge that crossed over Benner Street and 83, and climbed up the embankment to get this next shot. After seeing the train in Clinchfield, Virginia, we then caught back up with the train at its next stop in Fremont, Virginia. But we didn't stop there. We decided to go a little further south to get a better shot of the train. We soon arrived at the Road 643 railroad crossing, also known as the Carter-Stanley Highway. But instead of getting set up at the railroad crossing, I decided to get set up on a little overlook on Road 654, Smith Ridge. Just down the Carter-Stanley Highway is the Dr. Ralph Stanley Hills of Home Park, home to the Hills of Home Bluegrass Festival. The Bluegrass Festival is hosted 3 days of the year and has been going on for 6 years. The festival sees many bluegrass musicians playing here. For the 2018 festival, there will be many bluegrass musicians playing here, including Ralph Stanley II and the Clinch Mountain Boys. So, if you want to see this festival, it'll be happening on May 24th, 25th, and 26th of 2018. And if you're watching this after the date, you should go to their website at drralphstanleyfestival.com. Soon, we heard the rumble and the horn of our train in the distance, and we got set up for the shot. As soon as the front of the train passed, we then broke off and headed back down Route 63. We soon arrived just south of the small town of Trammell, Virginia, near the north portal entrance of the Sandy Ridge Tunnel. The tunnel was built in 1914 and is 7,854 feet long. At this end of the tunnel are some old Clinchfield Signals. With these old Clinchfield Signals being red and green, it's like they're celebrating Christmas here on the railroad as the Santa train continues on by them. Soon, we heard the horn of our train again and got set up for the shot. the town of Dane, Virginia. We weren't in time to see the train pull into the town, so we decided to continue on. But before we left, I got a glimpse of their depot, and it's in such a sad state. I mean, the whole roof of the station building has totally collapsed in on itself. I don't know if the depot can be rebuilt or not, or at least restored, but it's such a shame to see it in such a state. Oh well, we'll have to get back onto our trip now. Our next place we see the train at is at St. Paul, Virginia. Getting back on a happier note, St. Paul, Virginia is home to this small railway bridge. Written on each side of the bridge is the name of the predecessor railroad, Clinchfield and the Norfolk and Western. Well, to tell which side of the tracks you're on, so to speak, the name of the dominant railroad was written on top of the other railroad. In this case, since we're on the Clinchfield side of the railroad, the Clinchfield's name was written on top of the Norfolk and Western. And if you go to the other side of the bridge, it's the opposite, since, well, that's the Norfolk and Western side. Just like so many other places we've been to thus far, lots of people have gathered up near the tracks, waiting on either Santa or the Clinchfield locomotives. Soon, we heard the sound of an old horn coming into town, and we got set up for the shot.
Just perfect.
After the train came to a stop to give presents to the people of St. Paul, Virginia, my dad and I left town to get to our next stop. But halfway there, we ran across something that could have really ended our trip there. We noticed that our gas tank light was on. Our next stop was Dungannon, Virginia, and boy was I relieved to see a gas station there. Once in Dungannon and filled back up, we then proceeded up Route 72 till we reached a couple of Clinchfield Signals. I decided to get set up there because I thought it would look cool again to see more Clinchfield stuff with the Clinchfield locomotives. So I got set up. But I wasn't the only one there. There were many other rail fans set up along 72 in various places to get their shot. The two Clinchfield Signals we see here, and the others we have and will see along the way, are what known as the P5 vertical color light type signals. These signals were installed on the line in the late 1940s as part of a centralized traffic control project between Irwin, Tennessee and Delano, Virginia. During this project, the Clinchfield also installed new power switches. These signals use the AAR standard code aspect and use 10 to 18 watt single filament lamps. This section of the railroad was the first to receive the CTC treatment due to the fact that this was the busiest part of the line at the time. The P5 signals replaced the older semaphore signals that were using the automatic block system. With all the new signals and switches installed, the Clinchfield was now able to control the entire line's signals and switches from their dispatch center in Erwin, Tennessee. This project was completed by 1950. Even though these signals are still in place here on the line, as well as some other places along this railway line, as we've seen in Hayseed, Virginia, and other places, they are slowly being replaced. Just like the old semaphore signals they replaced long ago, they are now being replaced by newer signaling systems. Well, at least it looks like they're not in no hurry to get rid of these signals here on this railway line. Then, we heard the horn of our Clinchfield train coming down the line, and we all got set up. As the locomotives rolled by, 800 and 3632 then proceeded to do a bit of an air horn show for everyone trackside. As soon as the train rolled out, me and my dad got back to the car and rolled out as well. As we made our way out of Dungannon, we passed the old Clinchfield Dungannon Depot. It's now a museum. We then proceeded down Route 65 till we reached an open cow field along the tracks at what is supposed to be the town of Grays Ford, Virginia, just southwest of Dungannon. I believe this town is a paper town that Google Maps has made due to the fact that it's just an open field, as you can see. Getting back to the train, the reason why we stopped here was because of the cows. I thought it would be a cool shot to get some cows grazing in the field as the train rolled by, but thanks to a motorist, the cows got spooked and ran out of the field and into the other field next to it. Oh well, we still had a great shot though. also thought this shot was unique due to the fact that it's in an open farm field in what is supposed to be a mountain railway. Well, thanks to the Clinch River and a few other tributaries, it resulted in a hilly valley suitable for farming. This valley stretches from just north of Dungannon to Clinchport, Virginia, and even up a little ways of the Stony Creek. Perhaps this is the reason why the Clinchfield decided to put their railway line through here. After seeing the train pass the paper town, we then continued on down the road till we reached Moore Hollow, just east of Fort Blackmore, Virginia.
I don't have any more space on my car. I'm out.
After seeing the train here, we decided to go ahead and go straight to the Copper Creek Viaduct to try to beat the crowds. Well, that worked, didn't it? It looked like half of these people had been here all day. Oh well, for me and my dad, we decided to pull off on the southbound lane of US Route 23 near the overlook and set up on the cliffside. I wasn't the only one to have this idea anyway. The highlight of the chase is the massive CSX Copper Creek Viaduct, with a total length of 1,091 feet, and at its highest, 167 feet over the Copper Creek. The bridge was built by the Miller Quigg Construction Company for the Carolina, Clinchfield, and Ohio Railroad. It later became the Clinchfield Railroad.
Okay.
It was built in 1908, making it 109 years old at the time of this video. Although from here it looks like the viaduct is the only bridge crossing Copper Creek, there is a smaller and lower bridge Norfolk Southern uses, also known as the Copper Creek Viaduct, although it looks more like a small bridge than a viaduct. Unlike CSX's Copper Creek Viaduct, the lower bridge's length is 322 feet. When I was researching NS's Copper Creek, it was first built in 1891 by the South Atlantic and Ohio Railroad. Then, in 1932, the bridge was rebuilt into what it is today. At least that's what I got from historicbridge.org, bridgehunter.com, and the plaque at the Highway 23 pull-off located here. After about another 30 minutes of waiting, and my legs screaming at me to get off the cliff, we finally heard the horn of the Santa train coming around the bend and got set up for the next shot. After seeing the train cross over the viaduct, my dad and I proceeded around Clinch Mountain till we reached the community of Frisco, Virginia/Tennessee. We are located on 346 Carters Valley Road Bridge that crosses over the Clinchfield Railway. The reason why I wanted to see the train here was because we were back here in March of 2014 and I just wanted to catch another train here. I made that trip into Volume 4 of my Rails of the South video series. Also, I mentioned in that video that NS uses trackage rights on CSX from here to St. Paul, Virginia. What I forgot to mention was that CSX also had trackage rights on NS from here to Big Stone Gap, Virginia to connect their trains that were going between Kingsport, Tennessee and Corbin, Kentucky. If you want more of an explanation on Norfolk Southern's trackage rights on CSX, you can go visit Volume 4 of Rails of the South. Soon we saw the swaying lights of Clinchfield 800 coming down the tracks, so we got set up. After seeing the train in Frisco, we then proceeded to its final stop in Kingsport, Tennessee. When we arrived in the city, we parked our car and walked downtown, down East Main Street. As we made our way through the crowds, we passed the old Kingsport passenger station, also known as the Depot. The station was built in 1916 by the Carolina Clinchfield and Ohio Railway, and the building was designed by Clinton Mackenzie, a New York architect. This grand building was a monument to Kingsport's rise to become an industrial community. Unfortunately, in 1954, the station lost its passenger service. By the 1970s, the Clinchfield gave the station to the city. Ever since then, the building has now been host to a variety of businesses, including Citizens Bank. After getting past the crowds celebrating Santa's arrival, along with Ricky Skaggs' arrival, we made it to the front so we could admire the head power pulling the train. getting some shots of the train that could have been shot in the 1950s or 60s, the train pulled out to go to the other side of Kingsport.
Merry Christmas.
After the train left, we then decided to rejoin the crowds. We soon saw Santa Claus as he drove down Cherokee Street with what appears to be the first tree of Christmas for Kingsport. We then got to listen to some songs sung by Ricky Skaggs.
Favorite son, Mark Fane. Nice hand for Mark. 8th great-grandson of Nicholas Fane.
After celebrating with everyone, we then made our way back to our car and headed to our hotel. After getting checked in, we decided to go look for the locomotives and get some more shots. We found them nearby the intersection of Lincoln Street and Northeastman Road. CSX crews were getting the train cleaned up and ready for their return journey back to their headquarters back in Jacksonville, Florida. While that was happening, the Clinchfield locomotives and the CSX locomotives decided to swap places so that the CSX engines could be facing up front. And while they were moving around, they provided a very interesting show for us rail fans. After all 4 locomotives recoupled to the train, the fuel truck began to refuel all the locomotives. For Clinchfield 3632, it will return to the Southern Appalachia Railway Museum. For CSX 9992 and 9999 and the passenger consist, they will return to their HQ back in Jacksonville, Florida. For 800, it will also be heading to Florida as well, but to pull the Polar Express excursions for the newly formed Orlando Northwestern Railway in Traverse, Florida. Before we left the yard to go get dinner, we caught one more train, a CSX northbound empty coal train led by 2 CSX locomotives. After the coal train left, we then left the yard as well to go get dinner, ending our chase of the 75th Santa train. Although this was our first time chasing this train, I believe we did a very good job at chasing it. Well, I hope you liked this video, guys. Also, if you guys haven't seen my 100 subscriber special, I now have a Facebook page, so if you want to, you can go give that a like. Also, if you guys want to see more videos just like this one, please hit the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new videos come out. Well, again, thank you so much for liking this video, guys. I hope you have a good day. See you later. Merry Christmas, and have a happy holiday.